My guest this morning, and it is a pleasure to welcome him back here to All Mixed Up, is Bob Cowsill. Bob, good morning, and thanks for joining us this morning.
Well, being all mixed up myself, it's a good pairing. We're doing great.
The album took, well, a long time to come out, nearly 50 years, but The
Oh,
Cocaine Drain comes out on Omnivore Records this Friday. It's a wonderful album, and it's one of those things that make you say, what took so long? And I know there were so many different things going on in the background, but let's start there. What took so long?
well, the fact that it's coming out at all is a blessing. And that's because of Omnivore Recordings, because this was recorded in 1978. Susan was 19 years old and she sang everything. This girl, her voice, I mean, look, today her voice is great. At every stage of her career, it's been great. And this is the stage when she was 19, and it is super great. It took long because the project fell apart like many did back then. We were done recording. We had it all sequenced. It was mastered. We had 10 songs. We kept recording with Chuck and recorded five more, and they became our bonus tracks, but they're actually real bonus tracks. The bonus tracks to me are like things they didn't put on at first because they didn't think they were that good. But these are real bonus tracks. These are fine and stand on their own. But it just sat and sat. Once it fell apart, the tape room got destroyed. It was in the tapes for the cocaine. The master reels were all over the place. We rescued it because I found an acetate of it that had never been played, and we moved that over to a CD digital quickly. And then eventually, how many 5 decades later, Omnivore Recordings, they signed us to put out Rhythm of the World, our new release that came out in 2000, about 2 or 3 years ago. But then they found out about all that we've been doing all along the way, which is recording albums and having something happen where they didn't get out. And that's been our history. And Omnivore has now put out Rhythm of the World. Global was our 1998. They're putting out the Cocaine Drain album because when we came to them, they found out, whoa, you got a lot of stuff that no one's heard. And when they heard it, they said, it's not only a lot of stuff, it's a lot of good stuff. So, and they have been behind it from the get go. They're not done. We still have an a cappella project we're finishing up that we're going to do in a couple of years, bring that out. But they have been amazing. And it's really an honor that the Cocaine Drain album, and the only reason it's called that, it became a working title because of the title song. There's nothing nefarious about the Cocaine Drain, although it was rampant and crazy back then. Uh, it just became that title. We love it.
And that song written by John Hall, which
Yep.
many will know, of course, from the band Orleans. He had released it as well. And you mentioned Chuck. And for listeners who aren't aware yet, Chuck Plotkin, I know they know him from Bruce Springsteen as well as other stuff. That's the Chuck that you're referring to, who you worked with on this album.
And John Hall is the connection. Chuck Plotkin produced Orleans, Dance with Me, and all that. You're still the one business. And so Chuck brought us this song from John Hall to record because at the time we were just learning how to write and record ourselves. So there's other songs from other artists on the Cocaine Drain album that, when you hear a good song and you're allowed to record it, it's a good idea to record it. And that was a connection with John Hall and Chuck Block. And yes, Bruce. Bruce is the reason it all fell apart. Well, it's true. He's part of that equation that says this is never going to see the light of day. Okay, because if Bruce Springsteen, and it was only because this is the true reason, Bruce was having trouble. Bruce Springsteen, of all people, could not find anybody who could mix Darkness on the Edge of Town, which was going to be his next album. Okay. But Bruce is making decisions now. Am I going to be a superstar? Am I going to stay working man's artist? He's got big decisions to make. I mean, he went full steam ahead with superstar decisions, but this was the start of that. And so Chuck could mix Darkness on the Edge of Town, which I guess impressed Bruce because no one else could. Look, I don't know, this fine listening, these fine tuned ears, whatever. I think I could have mixed Darkness on the Edge of Town, but whatever on that. He took Bruce and Chuck had a long career after that. And look, Susan was getting interested in Dwight Twilley and having a romantic relationship and going down another path herself. And so it was just never going to see the light of day until today or the 19th,
The
which is
19th.
Look, none of us would have ever. When you have something like that happen and you put it away, you go, that's a good piece of work. We're very proud of it, and there it will sit on the family library in the family library shelf with a lot of other stuff that doesn't get out. Everyone has those albums and those songs and that part of your career that no one hears.
Well, Bruce has just released a ton of albums that sat around for what, decades as well, stuff that had been in the archives.
It's crazy. Well, and at the time, sometimes what you think isn't so good is really actually pretty good. Yeah, so you're saving it, you're proud of it, but it's just history's going to be history. We're very fortunate that this gets out. We're happy people get to hear Susan at 19 singing her heart out is a wonderful thing.
Yeah,
So,
you
so
mentioned that Susan comes front and center in the band. And Bob, this is a long way from the days of, what do you mean we have to have our little sister in the band?
part of us were talking the other day about that. And like, we hardly gave Susan anything in the Cowsills during the day. I mean, she was 8. What are you going to give her? So she hardly got anything. And then now we've given her an entire album, if not more, beyond that. And she was always that good. But look, there were 6 brothers above her. The fight for songs. It wasn't a fight. It's just we were a guy band. We were brothers. Her and Mom came in at the end and co-edited the whole thing up, and the country loved it, and we loved it too. But musically, it really stayed kind of the same.
I hear a number of influences in the album, the Beatles and the Searchers on one of the songs, especially with the 12 string lead that you play. I also hear a lot of Lindsey Buckingham, specifically some of the stuff that he did on that Buckingham Nicks album, which is also coming out now after 5 decades plus. How much of an influence did he have on you and your songwriting, Bob?
A tremendous amount, but not in a direct way. Just that this is what is coming into us during the 70s. We're getting Fleetwood Mac and Eagled like gangbusters. And Fleetwood Mac is, to us back then, Fleetwood Mac looked like the Cowsills kind of grown up. And we loved their sound, and we loved the way their songwriting and the way they integrated male and female. It was just a really cool thing. And Lindsey Buckingham, even I Think I'm in Trouble, just if you just hear some of the writing and the guitar playing, underrated unless you really got into them and saw, oh, you're very good. This band, Fleetwood Mac, is having an impact in the 70s that is huge. And just like the 60s, it was the Beatles, we're filtering all of this into our listening and into our songwriting and into our recording. So to this day, Fleetwood Mac influences the Cowsills.
And there's a connection between you and the Buckingham Nicks album because you had a relationship, the Cowsills, with Waddy Wachtel, and Waddy is on that album with Lindsey and Stevie, and in fact was in their touring band for a while pre Fleetwood Mac days.
The great thing for Waddy, for us and Waddy, we grew up together in Newport, Rhode Island. We both had local bands. We were the Beatle band. His was the Rascal band because they had the Hammond B3. But we're all in high school, and we all sound great. So the fact that Waddy came to the West Coast, we went to the West Coast, we made it, he made it. We had a role in getting him out there because we were very much a fan of Waddy Wachtel's. He is so good. And so we played a role in getting him situated on the West Coast where he could get in the path of the Buckinghams and the Nickses and have that career he's going to have as one of the great session and lead guitar players in rock. And that was really a special thing for us.
I want to go back to Bruce Springsteen for a minute because
Yeah.
in the liner notes of the Cocaine Drain that Bruce suggested, why don't you change the name? Because the Cowsills had a certain connotation to them, whether it was because it was the band with the mom in it or the little girl or whatever, there was a certain connotation. You didn't do it then. Why not?
Well, we sort of did. Now
You
we
played a
didn't.
couple of gigs with
Yeah,
different
we did a
names.
couple of gigs because we were toying with everything back then. It's like it's like, okay, all right, we're the Cowsills. Yes, our mother was in the group, and yes, Susan was a little girl, and you took preconceived judgments because of that and all that business. Okay, and we had great records, but we had Indian Lake, which was perceived as kind of bubblegummy and like, oh, that was cute and all that business. So this is what we're riding back then. We're getting dropped from labels left and right, but everyone gets dropped from labels. We were dropped from 2 during high school. MGM's going to drop us. We're going to go to London. London's going to drop us. But when we bumped into Chuck, Electro Asylum was running King, the Electric Simon Group, the James Taylors, the Linda Ronstadts, the Kenny Edwards, and all these writers Chuck is introducing us to. So he's going to take us and get away from that. But yeah, Springsteen said, Bruce says he even gave us a song to record called Rendezvous, which we immediately went in and recorded. We can't find the tape, but when Bruce Springsteen speaks, I don't want to like EF Hutton this thing, but you know what I'm saying.
Sure.
So we went and recorded Rendezvous. We went and performed as the Secrets. We went out as a group called the Critics and did a few shows. And we tested the waters on that. And of course, when you go through that, you realize, well, what are you doing? You know, and you realize, look, if no one catches up with you, then that's the way it ended up. But you got to stay true to yourself, even if you're off center or offbeat with what's going on. Or we were never. Now, look, we're recording this Cocaine Drain album right in the middle of the disco phase. We are not happening. Okay, even Fleetwood Mac and the Eagles, disco is during this time. In fact, we wrote a disco song for the Cocaine Drain album because we gave in to this. I guess we better write a disco song, and it's called "Is Your Love Alive," and it's not disco, of course, but everything we've ever filtered through us, whether it's disco, the Beatles, Fleetwood Mac, whatever, it does become you as it exits you. It's like you say, your influence, you hear them, your roots. I hear roots, I hear Beatles. You hear them, but you can't put your finger on them. And that's how that works. It eventually gets all swallowed up in yourself, and you write a song, and all those influence kind of filter in on you, and you can hear them and you feel them, you like it, but it does become you. It's interesting.
And with regard to changing your name or not, there's well, I don't know if it's funny, but maybe it is in retrospect. When the Global album, when you had that out, it got into the hands of somebody at, I think it was Atlantic Records. And
Yeah.
one of the heads of Atlantic loved the record until he found out, what do you mean it's the Cowsills? And he fired the guy, although he eventually brought him back, but he fired the guy who brought you to the label. And I'm wondering in retrospect, boy, if they had changed the name and gone under a different name, what might have happened?
That probably, to be honest, and you can have free thought on issues like this once you go through an experience like that, because that was close. Mark Nathan was an A&R guy at this bit, and Doug Morris was the guy, and Doug was out of town, and Mark had been telling everyone at the label, "Wait do you hear this? Wait do you hear this stuff? You're not going to believe it. It's that good." And he did believe that, and did believe it through his whole life. And Doug said he got home and called Mark in. I heard you got something to play for me, and he played it and loved it. Loved Some Good Years. Is it any wonder? Because it's a great look. It's a good record, a great record. But when he heard it was the Cowsills, the fit hit the shan. I don't know why at that time, so much later. You're talking 10 years almost after the fact. Why that was in Doug Morris's head to that level still, and why a man in that position would have such a preconception of something and let that run his decision rather than put some good music out, which is his job. So look, we've sliced and diced that meeting and what happened there a lot. And it was just a missed opportunity, but it shows you how close you can get. We were a yes away at the desk of the yes, and it all went south. So you see, it's very amazing what it takes to really, really finish off something, get it out there, and have it be successful. It's a big equation.
And I had a copy of Global when it first came out before when you before the reissue, and I remember thinking at the time, Bob, this is one of the great power pop albums ever.
A lot of people wrote about it. It was critically acclaimed. We made 3,000 copies. We sold them over 23 countries. We didn't make any more. We said that you do this. You just wipe your hands. You go. That was a great effort. We were proud of ourselves, and that's all you have at that time. Yes, you want other people to be proud of it, and other people. But now we got people saying, "No, no, you can't do this. It's the councils," and we go, "Hey, whatever." And our attitude's always been, "Yeah, whatever." Then we go back to our lives, and then we come back and we make more records and we make more music, and we've just been doing it our entire life. We've been performing our entire life. And if you have million selling hit records, great. If you don't, it's still great. I mean, it'd be greater if you did, but man, the world's way different. God bless anyone trying to make it now. We had three yeses. when we made it. And that was unique.
You've been a huge part of the Happy Together tour for a number of years now, and we just lost Mark Volman, who was such a huge figure. Mark, of course, started out with the Turtles, and Bob, I'm looking at all of the different tributes that have come to him from all over the musical spectrum. Can you speak to the impact that Mark had on you guys?
Mark changed our lives. Mark is like losing a dad or a brother. Mark brought us on the Happy Together tour 11 years ago, and it was a gamble. And again, the same thing like with Doug Morris, like the Who, the Cowsills. Nah, I don't know about that. We've always been a little bit of a tough sell, okay? And they turned us down a few years on the Happy Together tour because of that issue. Like, does anyone remember? Because look, we didn't stay out there. We didn't tour like everybody else. There wasn't even an oldies concept when we were quitting. You were just done back then, and that's how we did it. But Mark Volman took us out of the, not necessarily cobwebs, but when he put us on this Happy Together tour, he put us in front of 150,000 people every summer for what just became our 11th summer in a row. And he believed in us, and we all fell in love, and the Turtles, beyond just the Cowsills, they're the ones that did the class action lawsuit. They're the ones that took the helm for all of us prior to 1972. That wheelhouse was our wheelhouse. Our hits were in that wheelhouse. And when the Turtles resolved a very famous lawsuit, you can just go read about it, but they did it. It took years. But as soon as they did that, royalty checks started appearing. You were started getting paid for your oldie songs that you didn't think were selling anything. But we're all going to learn about the magic of the songs from the 60s that's driving the Happy Together tour itself. The 80-year-olds aren't. The 70-year-olds, we're out there doing the best we can, but it's the songs that's the magic of the tour, and the songs that connected a generation and bonded us to this day. And then it all went everywhere. It all split. The whole scene split. But the 60s groups, we were the firstborn of the whole thing. We got the bad contracts. We got taken advantage of. We made bad decisions. We had bad accountants, bad managers. We made every mistake in the world. But the groups that followed us in the 70s and 80s got good managers. They got accountants. They learned quickly. But the genres are going to go haywire. We all listen to one radio station, and you've got the Led Zeppelin fan and the Cowsill fan right there in the same pocket. We're all getting along, and you're hearing, hey, that's pretty good. Yeah, that's not bad either. That doesn't happen today. Everyone's split, and they're really focused on what they like only. So that happened. So our generation is now unique. We will be the last one to talk about what it was like before social media, what it was like before the internet. I mean, look, we saw television and color television. Uh, uh, if you're born 49 to my age, I'm 76. I've seen so much I can't even believe it. So it's amazing, and it keeps going.
I think back to a point in time where Mark and Howard Kalin, his partner, they couldn't even use their own names, and that's where the whole Flo and Eddie thing came from. You talk about bad contracts and things of that nature.
They lived it for us and went through it for us, but they attacked it for us. The rest of us are too small. We're just getting hit left and right by stuff like that. They do a whiteboard on YouTube, and the Flo and Eddie, right? What do we do? They were so smart. And okay, you're going to get mad at us for that. No turtles. All right, we'll become this. And we all could see and live the absurdity of the whole thing. That was the big joke between all of us about with Flo and Eddie. They were like representing, like, here's how you handle it, folks. And they did great, and they appeared everywhere. They're on Bang a Gong by T-Rex. Look, these men did everything and did so much for so many that a Mark Volman passing, you bet it's worldwide. It's bigger than anyone knew, unless you knew how big it was.
Yeah, they put with Alice Cooper. They're on Hungry Heart. We keep going back to Bruce Springsteen. I know we're here in New
So,
Jersey, but
right.
that's them on Hungry Heart. Bruce sped the vocals up a little bit, and Flo and Eddie come in, and bingo, the first real huge hit that Bruce had.
Oh yeah, and our question to these guys now that we got to know, Mark and Howard, was like, "What are you doing there? What were you hanging out in the booth? I mean, how do you get in all these spots? You're like Forrest Gump types, you know?" It's like so funny, so funny. But they were great singers. Look, they said like Eleanor, my favorite Turtle song, Eleanor. They go into the studio, they get the basics. We all do it the same. We get your basic track, get your lead vocal, get it. But then late at night, Howard and Mark would go in and do those harmonies, that vocal stack that the Turtles became famous for. I mean, that's manufactured in the studio, but they had it. They had a sound. And we loved it because we had a vocal stack. I mean, our family vocal stack was right up there with everybody else's, if not even a little broader and a little like, wow, So in that regard, we're contemporaries and everyone's making good music and it all sounds pretty darn good. And you love that part of it. That's a bonding thing.
One of the things that's amazed me over the years about the Cowsills vocal stack is no matter who's in or out of that mix, it always sounds the same. I don't know if that's the family genes. I don't know where it comes from, but no matter who's in that mix, you guys always sound the same.
I can describe it. See, what happens is if there's, excuse me, five or six of us, the DNA component of all this, the genetic component of sibling harmonies, Osmonds, Beach Boys, I mean, you can go down the group, Ames, all of them, is that there's less space between the harmonies. And that's what you hear. It's so tight. There's almost no room. And it's a very tight sound. And then you double it or triple it. We even moved each other around within the stack. If you put Susan, Barry, and John low, their vocals sound a lot different than they were way up high. And so if you have a nice group of singers, which we do and did through our whole career, that's a lot of fun. And we really got into the vocals. We grew up on vocals. We listened to the Osmonds on the Andy Williams show. We were right in front of Sing Along with Mitch with that red bouncing ball. We did it all. Ed Sullivan, you name them, we watched them and we learned, just by being little sponges. We're just kids, but we did learn.
In addition to the Cocaine Drain album that comes out on Friday the 19th, you have a couple of shows coming up as a trio in the area, including one in Manhattan at the Iridium on Halloween, and then here in New Jersey on November 2nd at the Avenel Performing Arts Center. How does the trio show different for what you've been doing?
It's a lot of fun. And it's different and it's more intimate. It's Susan, Paul, and I with two guitars. Okay, so we have 12 guitar strings, we have 20 fingers and three voices. Now, that's a good enough, and we create a very good sound. And the sibling harmony part of component of it stays, even though the band's gone. And we've talked to a lot of people; they love the show. They hear the harmonies, and you your song has to be good undressed. You know what I mean? It's like
Mhm.
it's just got to be a good song, and that's what you gravitate to with a trio show. We have Q&As, we have stories, we have a little history. The harmonies are there. It's fun bouncing around the country with Paul and Susan. It's a lot more simple. We play smaller, more intimate venues. Like the Iridium on Times Square in New York City. You go Times Square, New York City, and it's the Iridium. It's like there's 160 seats, but it sounds so big, We just love it. And that will be at the Cutting Room in New York City. That's on February 21st, a Saturday night. We love playing New York City. I don't know. We lived there when we were kids. I went to Pace College, and I think there's still a pulse of New York City that we bring in with us when we return to the city. We just love it from the days from when we were there.
Once again, the Cocaine Drain album comes out on Friday the 19th, and two shows in the area: Halloween in the city at the Iridium, and then November 2nd at the Avenel Performing Arts Center. You can get tickets and information for that at avenelarts.com. And you can keep up with all things Cowsill on their website at cowsill.com
It's
slash home.
appearance.
Bob,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Just go to appearances. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's great.
definitely keep up with what's going on. Bob, thank you so much for your time. It's always good catching up with you, and best of luck with the album and the shows coming up.
Thank you so much. But we will reconnect when the acapella comes out and we can talk about that. It'll be a lot of fun.
You're on. I'll
It's
hold you to
great.
that.
Thank you so much, everyone.